And like this, I continued my way to Sarajevo. Before coming to Bosnia, I didn't really have any expectations about the country. But one thing I learned and can really recommend is driving through the country because it's absolutely mesmerizing. You drive past green hills, mountains, forests, wavy fields, and you drive next to emerald colored water. Oh, and then when I finally arrived, and it was literally 2 minutes from my location, we got stuck because of some kind of blockage. And everybody had to reverse and turn around and go a different direction, which cost me 30 minutes. Welcome in Bosnia, Sarajevo. After 5 hours driving yesterday, I made it to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. It's quite an interesting city. Yesterday evening I had a quick look. And today in the light I'm gonna have a look. So let's see what we can find. This is one of the most recognizable buildings of Sarajevo because of its beautiful, unique Middle Eastern inspired architecture. Today it's used as the town hall, but before it was used as a library, and during the siege of Sarajevo it was intentionally set ablaze by the Serbians to destroy the books inside. The city of Sarajevo is a recently new city because it was built in the 15th century by the Ottoman Empire, and that's why it looks today like modern Turkey. The little streets we see over here haven't changed for centuries and they're still filled with craftsmen. Originally, every street had its own purpose, like jewelry, clothes, furniture, metalworks and also rugs. This street we see over here has kept its original purpose for roughly 300 years, and it's filled with metal workers. More precisely, copper, because copper is very easy to work with, and this stems from the Ottoman influence. And they still make tea, coffee and sugar pots, plates, keychains, bookmarkers and many more things. A new metal art is bullet art, because after the wars in the 90s there were bullets everywhere in and around the city. Instead of making it negative, they made it positive by turning it into souvenirs.
What time close?
You make everything here?
I working with brother, with father, 5 people from my family do same,
Oh wow.
and we working all together. And about 90% product in our shop is making with handmade, not absolutely 100.
Yeah.
I have some stuff like this kind here, mirror, you see, that's making this kind here, that's making with
yeah.
factory, this kind right spoons is making with factory, but that stuff which is making of the copper is our product, coffee pot, coffee grinder,
Wow.
bracelet, bookmark, rings,
Oh, very nice.
thank you so much. And copper is very good for work, this is soft material, you see, I don't need heat strong, I heat like that.
Yeah.
Just need to be precision, have little skill for space, for symmetrical and
And creativity.
yes.
The city has been called many times the meeting point between East and West, and here we can see an example of that, because during the Austro-Hungarian times, they influenced the city a lot. This resulted in the East being Ottoman influenced and the West being European influenced. This is a Catholic cathedral, which is actually kind of unusual in the Balkans because they're mostly Orthodox. This again shows you the influence of outside empires on Bosnia, because this cathedral was built by the Austro-Hungarians, turning Sarajevo more and more multicultural. In fact, Sarajevo was known as the Jerusalem of Europe, because it hosts Islam, Judaism, Christianity and Orthodox religions. This beautiful hidden gem is Morica Han, which was originally built as a traveller's inn in 1551, although the current building stems from after the fire of 1697. Now it's a popular place for a coffee or souvenirs. Here I randomly stumbled upon this art display above of the Morica Han, and there was nobody there. It was a little bit dark, I don't know why, but it's kind of a bummer because it's really a beautiful Islamic calligraphy, and you don't have to be a Muslim to enjoy this kind of artwork. So yeah, I had the whole place for myself. This mosque is one of the biggest representations of the Ottoman times in the Balkans, and also the first mosque in the world to have electricity. One of the things that I really loved about Sarajevo was the walkability of the city, because it feels more like a small town than a big city. Especially in the old center, you don't see cars or any other kind of transport, not even bikes, it's all walking, which creates a very calm environment. You can sit in the nice little bars or little shisha lounges. You can buy real authentic craftsman works like rugs or metal works we saw before, or paintings as we saw before. So it's really an array of options that you can find in this little bit of the city. Then if you just go around the corner, you will see the contrast again between the Austro-Hungarian buildings like this one, which has turned into a food market, while just before we came from an Ottoman looking market. So the contrasts are very interesting and very obvious. And it really feels like you're time traveling a little bit and jumping between two different worlds the whole time, which is very interesting. If you wouldn't know any better, you would think that we were walking in the Middle East right now. But no, this is the bazaar of Sarajevo. This is again a legacy of the Ottoman period. It has every kind of shop just like outside of the bazaar, but I think one of the main differences is that there's nobody here that tries to sell you anything. It's not really tourist oriented yet. It gives more of an authentic feel. Here we see the ruins of an old inn built in 1540, and it was actually a big fortified inn called a caravanserai. It was a safe place for travelers and merchants, with all the commodities that you need inside of the walls, so at night the doors could be closed and they were safe. They also built a lot of shops inside, and the bazaar next to it, which we just saw before, is also a result of this. But unlike the bazaar, the inn didn't survive because it was destroyed by a fire in 1879, and today it serves as a monument. The surprising thing for me was that the city looks very normal and feels very European. And then you're wondering, well, what's the problem? Why shouldn't it be? Well, because 20 years ago they had a very big war and the entire city was devastated. But on a day-to-day basis you don't feel this at all in the city. Everybody just does their thing, goes to the mall, goes to work, and it's actually a sign of how humans cope and just go on. The city itself is very safe and it feels very relaxed. The atmosphere in general is very calm, especially compared to other cities in the Balkans. The soul of the city is the multicultural aspect, and even though it suffered during the war, it survived and it's thriving, and it makes the city beautiful. This is the Historical Museum of Sarajevo, which is a museum that hosts several exhibitions. But right now it has a permanent exhibition about the siege of Sarajevo. The building itself is testimony to that siege, because all across the building itself you can see damage and bullet holes. Because it was on the front line for most of the time. In fact, most of the building until this day is still closed off because of the damage. So, the siege of Sarajevo. Where to start? The war was very complicated, but it all came down to the collapse of Yugoslavia. Bosnia, like most of the nations in Yugoslavia, wanted to be independent. But the biggest problem was the many ethnic groups inside of the country, like the Croats, Bosniaks and the Serbs. The Serbs didn't want to be independent and wanted to stay with Yugoslavia, or nowadays Serbia. This started a revolt amongst the Serbs, and they started to create paramilitary groups. And in response to that, the Croats and Bosniaks did the same thing. Meanwhile, Yugoslavia was already fighting against Croatia and Slovenia, and thus also sent their army into Bosnia to control the situation. The situation spiraled out of control, and eventually the Serbs tried to capture Sarajevo to bring it back in the sphere of influence of Yugoslavia. But they failed, and they got stuck outside of the city, which resulted in the city being surrounded and starting the siege of Sarajevo. This happened in 1992, and they weren't able to capture it for 3 years. Therefore, this siege is the longest siege in modern history. But why didn't the Serbs capture it? Well, for several reasons, too complicated to all name. But basically, the Serbs had the weapons, but not the soldiers. Because urban warfare is very disastrous and therefore you need a lot of soldiers. So instead, they tried to starve the city into submission. Meanwhile, the citizens were stuck, and they were bombarded and had sniper fire every single day for 3 years. Nobody was safe. Children, old people, women, nobody. They had to cultivate their own vegetables, chop their own firewood. Everything went back to basic survival. Sarajevo is located within a valley, and it follows this river, which gives it an elongated shape. It's hard to imagine now, but 3 months after I left this place, there were severe floods in Sarajevo, which almost completely submerged the bridges of this river. This impressive looking building was originally the Evangelist Church, built in 1899, but was later converted in 1972 into the Academy of Fine Arts. Like many buildings in Sarajevo, this one was also badly damaged during the siege, but now it has been restored and looks beautiful. This is the original city center from 1462, which was the original bazaar at that time. Nowadays, it's the main tourist location. The bazaar has been replaced by touristic cafes and souvenir shops. And today the main attraction is feeding pigeons. Sarajevo by night is also very inviting and relaxed. The old center charm at night is beautiful together with the lively conversations coming from the shisha lounges. It makes an overall lively and picturesque atmosphere. Even more when you go from the old center to the western part with more European bars. You can have east and west in the same night out. And the nice thing is that normally in bigger cities when people go out you hear it all across the city, but here if you just walk down a little alley, go to the other side, you barely hear anything. So one moment you can have a romantic walk and the other moment you can grab a beer.
Hello there, this is Professor Fiction with a few facts about Sarajevo. 3 facts. Fact number 1, some of you maybe know World War I started here, with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife from Austria-Hungary. But did you know it only happened because the car took a wrong turn? Let me explain. The story went as follows. The assassins tried to kill him when he entered the city. One of them threw a bomb at the car, but it missed and hit the car behind the Archduke. After the Archduke's meeting, he decided, against the advice of his advisors, to go back to the hospital and visit the wounded from the bombing. On their way towards the hospital, the driver took a wrong turn and drove exactly towards the assassins. Well, the rest is history. If only they had Google Maps back then, there would not have been a World War I. Fact number 2. During the Austro-Hungarian times, the Austro-Hungarians wanted to build a government building in the old part of Sarajevo. The only problem was that there was a house there, so they offered the owner money several times over to move away, but he said no every time. Eventually they forced him to move. So what did the owner do? He deconstructed his house piece by piece and built it completely on the opposite side of the river out of revenge to annoy the Austro-Hungarians. Today it still stands as a restaurant with delicious local foods, definitely worth a visit. Fact number 3. When you walk the streets of Sarajevo, you might come across weird looking red paint spots. These are actually little memorials of war. They are called red roses, and they commemorate victims of mortar attacks because these shapes are made from mortar blasts, and they are painted only red when people died because of it. The shape of the blast looks like a rose, hence the name. Next to that, you can also see many graffiti artworks of red roses because it has become a general sign of remembrance. So when you see one, you'll know what it symbolizes. There you go. That's it. Fact number 3 for Sarajevo. Bye-bye and see you next time.
Thank you, Dr. Fiction, for your interesting facts, as always. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. I really loved Bosnia. The nature was amazing, the city is great, the people are great, the food is delicious. Unfortunately, the history is slightly less nice. But it's always important to remember, but to always look forward also. Anyway, we finish up with my favorite artist of Sarajevo because I love his vibes. So take it away and see you next time.